Good morning, everyone. Really morning. It's early in the morning. I'm Andy. She's Sarah. And we have a 12-race card to talk about. We have lots to talk about today, 4 stakes in today's card. The last Grade 1s run in New York. When is the first Grade 1? It was the Carter, and that's no longer a Grade 1. Do we run a Grade 1 before going to Belmont Stakes weekend?
We must, right?
I don't know. The Man o' War's not a Grade 1 anymore.
Isn't there something in April?
No.
No.
It used to be the Carter.
Right.
Now I don't think that we have a Grade 1.
Wow.
One of my friends
That's
can
a
text
fun
me if
piece
they
of
want,
trivia.
but I don't know if we run a Grade 1 before we head up to Saratoga for Belmont Stakes weekend. So,
Well, as you know,
that's it.
the first Grade 1 of the year is one of your favorite races.
What?
The Old Don Handicap.
Oh, right. Yeah. No, it was the Carter, which was my favorite.
Yes.
And it's, what's funny is the Cigar Mile downgraded was one of the better runnings of Cigar Mile we've had in years last year.
Very
The weather
productive.
wasn't good, but sometimes these downgrades help you get better fields. Anyway, we've got 12 to talk about, so we'll get right to work. Head over to Naira Bets. Use the promo code MATCH200, and we will match the $200 of your initial deposit. Check out track stats when you're there as well. We've got a carryover in the pick 6. $24,847 in that carryover. That'll start in race number 7 of our 12-race card. It feels like Saratoga. We have a Breeders' Cup bankroll winner, 50 to win on the Champagne. Win, lose, or draw. You get $20 back towards your Breeders' Cup bankroll builder. I think this is the last bankroll builder before the Breeders' Cup, I'm going to guess. The only big race probably left anywhere before now in the Breeders' Cup after this weekend is the QE2 for the 3-year-old fillies at Keeneland next week, which they'll draw today. Keeneland draws a week out. And we have coverage from 12 to 4. 12 to 4 today. 12 to 4, the first 8 races will be covered on FS2. Race number 1. Well, if you didn't watch Keeneland yesterday, you didn't see, was it Montalcino? Yeah, Montalcino came back at Keeneland yesterday. We'll take a look at Mazmac, who is the favorite in here and the horse to beat, finishing second. Montalcino came back and improved his Beyer figure 6 points, winning with a 97 Beyer, a very promising looking horse for Cherie DeVaux. My only thing I would say is that this horse was kind of picking up the pieces, and given the horse's prior races, Sarah, I just want to see it again. But to be fair, he runs this kind of race, he's probably going to win.
Look, I think that's completely fair. And sometimes when you look at the Keeneland races early on in the meet, especially when you have a horse that is that inside speed, that being good is like saying the grass is green and the sky is blue.
Was it inside speed at Keeneland? I didn't watch.
It was, but he was a good horse regardless. And it's not as though
but
horses won that were completely illogical, just maybe a little bit more difficult to make up some ground towards the outside. But an impressive performance nonetheless. I like that at least in his prior races, he's been able to not be so far back as he was last time, because this is a more compact field. We don't know what these first-time starters are going to do, but it's not as though there's a ton of speed signed on to set him up for this big late run like he made last time, even though you do have a couple horses that like to be forward.
But that's somewhat of my thinking, and I think that Irad's going to have to be more aggressive from the rail with upstanding. And I get that Quando may have a little bit more natural speed, but I think you're going to see Irad sort of try to seize the bull by the horns. We only ran 3 dirt races yesterday. There's an argument that the inside speed was good yesterday. It's not conclusive. When 3 races, it's hard to say, but it's a little tough to get away from that effort by Linda Rice's horse later in the day that was the inside speed, and maybe that horse just really ran. So I'm going to kind of hope that this horse is the speed. And I'm also interested in the first-time start on the outside, Iron Sight for Chad Brown. It just feels like this horse might be a runner. I know nothing about him. I do know a little about Luke on Point. Luke on Point is named for our boss, Tony Alvado's son, Luca, who we're big fans of. Luca, spends most of Saratoga hanging out with me, or at least not enough of it for me, probably too much for him. I think that this is probably the better one of the two. How good, I don't really know.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, Chad Brown, with his 3-year-old and up first-time starters here at Aqueduct, he does well with a small sample size and dirt routes over the past 5 years, 38%, $3 ROI. If either of them can run, they might be interesting in here. I just wanted to go with experience.
And it's not an easy field for a firster, because it feels like the winner of this race is going to have to run a Beyer somewhere in the low to mid-80s at the very least. And that's not that easy a thing to do for a firster. It takes more than just a decent firster to get it done.
Right.
We'll see what happens in race number 1. Race number 2. I had picked Magni, who was scratched. You have the number 9, Rocked Out, who, as far as I can tell, has absolutely no ability whatsoever.
And that may be the case. But looking at horses that I know we have some interest in this race, it's horses that were perhaps against the track last time out and that are taking a drop in class. And I feel like that was probably your argument with the number 3 Magni, because that was a day you did want to save some more ground. But Rocked Out has had 2 trips where he's been against the racetrack. He was wide against a rail that was very good, went under whose radar won, and then he was right on the rail and really hustled.
You thought it was a really good rail in the 19th?
I thought it was a good enough rail, and he broke from post 10 and was wider than a horse that he outfinished, who was the favorite in Saratoga Warrior.
What was his excuse last time?
That he was on the rail, that you didn't want to be on the rail that day, and he was hustled forward, more of an outside flow track. And now he's dropping in class. So he's at least had those 2 races where he's been against it versus some that have had that one and now they're dropping immediately.
Yeah, I was really more interested in the 10 because the horse got bet first time out. And that's why I was interested, because the money the horse took first time out, as opposed to the 9 Rocked Out, who hasn't taken a nickel in either of his starts. I saw that. Now listen, I was 3-10 in this race, and they were the 2 that I kind of wanted to use. So now I'm left with only the 10, who I think will run better, and New Gelding since then. And there just isn't a lot to go on here. I think people are going to bet on the number 6, probably Saratoga Warrior, who got bet so heavily first time.
He's also my racehorse.
But he was really bet more than my racehorse. He was atrocious in that race.
And that's also why I looked at that race and thought Rocked Out was wider, a little bit more against the racetrack, came from further back than he did and ran better than him. And he's going to be a much bigger price.
Right, but he didn't do any running either. I mean, the one thing you can say for Saratoga Warriors, at least he was bet. Saratoga, you know, my racehorse or not, he took real money in that race. Now, I'm not running to bet him in here, but he'll probably run a little bit better. I didn't really find too many places I want to go. It's sort of weird to see the turf-bred Viking Warrior on the dirt, but still, it's not really a pedigree that suggests that horse is supposed to be a dirt horse. And I tried to make cases for Monteavi. There's just nobody near that's run well at all.
Yeah. I mean, I think of the first-time starters, Papa Paulie P at least has a half-sibling that did win first time out as a 2-year-old, so there is that, but there isn't much else going on in here.
Most of the foals from that dam were horrible from Papa Paulie P, but you're right. There's really very little to hang your hat on in race number 2. Race number 3, speaking of horses that have been in the Bermuda Triangle, let's take a look at Equivoque, I guess that's probably right.
I did spend time on this morning, and it's very different in different languages,
Well,
so no one's wrong.
This horse beat Mulliken, who's one of the favorites heading towards the Breeders' Cup Sprint, though federal judge, after his performance yesterday, may have something to do with that as well, as suddenly we're getting some sprinters running faster races finally. And then he comes back, he loses to a decent horse. I think it was an Al Stall horse that beat him last time out. But you haven't seen this horse in 17 months. Year plus laughs and dirt sprints. Todd Plesher's 3 for 19, 59-cent ROI. He's 1 for 10 at Naira with a 46-cent ROI, including a third place finish at 1-5 in there. And I mean, this horse might win, but like you, I'm just staying away from him.
And isn't it fair to say that the Mulliken that he beat at that time, we've seen Mulliken take several
all
steps
horses
forward.
get better with time, of course,
Sure.
but Mulliken was still a very good horse early in his career. It's not as though he didn't show real talent early.
Right, I just
The
think some
question
people
really
might
is-
see Mulliken and be like, well, now graded stakes winner, but he's taken steps forward.
Yeah, I disagree with that thinking. He beat a legitimate horse first time out. Where's he been? And how reliable is he to run that race? And based on Todd's stats, these horses do not come back very often and run really well in their subsequent starts.
And this isn't a field of absolute nobodies. There's some consistent horses in here.
I totally agree. And you have the number 5 on top, Silver Satin. I feel like Silver Satin was last on the time, but he ran a big fig last time.
He did, and I like that he's at least a little bit tactical. He was able to really be aggressive last time, going the 7 furlongs and win over Bourbon Chase, who's not a winning type of horse, but he is a consistent horse. And I like that even in the start before that, he was able to save some ground. He got a really nice trip right up the rail to defeat that field over on the hill and Yo Banana Boy. And so I like that he's at least a little bit more adaptable coming into this race. He can be the one that's close to the lead. He can take the lead if no one else wants to. And he's just been ultra consistent.
He ran well last time. I'm not denying him. I think he was, it was advantageous by a slow pace, and though there isn't the 2 and 3 feel like the speeds here. I'm going to ride the Brad Cox train. We'll go back 2 starts and look at Quick to Accuse, who did run a clunker in his race last time out, but he was running against General Partner. He stumbled badly at the start. I can give him an excuse for that. And before that, he had been running fast races, and this barn has been extremely hot.
Yeah, He just makes a lot of sense in here because he's the more recent, even though he is coming off a little bit of a freshening and a poorer effort. He has some excuses for that. It's not like we haven't seen him in over a year. Like the horse for Todd Pletcher coming in, Equivoque, who is going to be, in all likelihood, possibly around the same price. So at least he's more of that known commodity. He has more races with higher numbers, and you at least know that cutting back, he should be able to handle that no problem. He has in the past.
Yeah, he's going to have to go 6. I don't disagree with that. He might be a little outpaced early, but I just sort of went to the barn. They'd been running well. I didn't want Equivoque, and I'm not going to go to Silver Satin based on that one race last time. I actually think Tivy is a bit dangerous, who's going to be forward in here, and I want to use him as well. He jumped up at the start. I mean, he just completely leapt up at the start, found himself 4 or 5 lengths behind the field at that point, was wide the whole way. I thought he actually ran okay in that race, all things considered, and I don't totally trust him, but he has run some fast figures in the past, and he's going to be forward. So I'm going to use a little Tivy here, and I'm going to mostly use 3 and 7 in this race.
Do you agree with Timeform US that he's going to be alone on some chilly, loose lead in here? Because I didn't really see it that way.
Well, who are the super fast horses in here?
I'm not saying they're super fast horses, but I don't exactly see him cruising up front and having no other
Well, they
horses
do
be
have-
forward.
they
The
have-
Frisky Island can be forward, Silver Satin.
No, I agree with Timeform US that it won't be a fast pace.
Sure.
I don't know who the horse that could possibly be involved in the fast pace in this race is. He's clearly faster than horses outside of him. Frisky Island doesn't have the speed that he once had, so is he really going to suddenly show huge speed from inside? I mean, if he wants to really go, maybe he stalks outside of him, but I agree with Timeform US. There's going to be a moderate pace in here. I don't see it as a particularly quick pace. Race number 4, going 7 furlongs. Speaking of Brad Cox, I went to Natural Harbor. I mean, obviously last time something went badly wrong in that race. He didn't run well. His prior races are fast enough to win. Claimed by the Cox barn, Sandy Goldfarb. It seems like all these horses are running, and I'm just not fighting it. It's just not worth it to me anymore.
I think that's fair. And I feel like we don't see Brad Cox claim a lot of horses. And when he does, it's with intent.
They're usually for Sandy Goldfarb. That's basically the gist of it. He's had horses for Sandy for a long time. I was talking to Sandy about it the other day, and he's been claiming for him, and they've been winning.
Yeah, no, I mean, this horse makes a lot of sense. He has races to go back to that put him in the mix. He's faced some okay horses and done well, especially here on this track in the past. So, I mean, he makes a lot of sense, and he shouldn't be so far away from things early. Now, did you see this race as having a little bit more pace? Some of it coming out with
Timeform
Aqua
US has it. I mean, and they have the 5 right on top of the pace. So, I mean, we'll see how it goes. In general, I assume the paces are moderate here. They're very rarely fast. So if you go in here with the feeling the paces will be moderate, you're usually not disappointed because people just don't
That's
try
true.
here aggressively for the lead. It's just been happening for way too long. The legal deal is going out for Jamie Ness on the outside, and as you can see, he's the second choice in the line. I'll show his race 3 back. David Argona had clued me into this stat about a month or so ago. He was talking about it with me, and you look it up. Claimers at NYRA, 1 for 22 overall for Jamie Ness with a 40-cent ROI, and on dirt, 1 for 20 with a 44-cent ROI. It just seems like the horses that are winning for Jamie Ness are horses that are allowance horses. His claiming horses have not come here and competed at a particularly high level. That was an interesting point by David, and I was looking up when this horse ran just to get the exact numbers, and that makes me a little dubious of a horse who obviously can win.
And I think that with him, this is something that we had talked about last time with another Jamie Ness runner who was coming in, likely to be a short price in a similar type of field. And these are just not the types of horses that statistically you want to take at these shorter prices because they do tend to get bet. There is that name recognition. And usually if they're in here, it's for some sort of reason. And I also think that, yes, he is the outside speed coming in, but isn't he going to have to deal with Natural Harbor to his inside?
Yeah, I didn't think he was as fast as some inside of him. We'll see. He's got the right post for stalking. What alternative reality were you in when you picked alternative reality here?
I feel like he's been living in an alternative reality of horses that he's been facing over his last several starts. I mean, if you look at who he's been running against stakes types, he's been running against now graded stakes winners. He's just been so in over his head since really around January of last year. Then he had a little bit of a break following that race at Saratoga. He came back, had the race off the freshening, didn't run well at all, but let's say he needed one off the freshening. Looking back at his races since January 12th, what position could he really have been in to win any of those races versus the field that he's facing today? I mean, Full Screen, Federal Judge, Donegal Forever, Arturius, Perform.
Well, it's not as though he started his career running in $20,000 claiming races. I mean, he was competing at a higher level earlier, and it just seems like his form started to decline a few races into being claimed away from Chris Englehart, and you're talking about a very low percentage barn with a very low percentage rider, and you're trying to revive him. Listen, he's going to be a huge price, so there's no upside in my knocking him. I just think you're trying to revive a horse for connections that don't see a lot of revivals.
Well, I think
I mean, what was his excuse to be as bad as he was last time?
first off the layoff.
He was off a 2-month layoff. Horses come off 6 months to 6 weeks. So
know,
yes,
it
he had been
depends on
being
the horse.
badly overrun by his connections, but
He's been way in over his head. He's going to be a price.
he's a big price. Good luck to him. We'll break after 6, by the way. Race number 5, we get the, this is the Jockey Club Derby Invitational. I'm very hopeful that after today, I'm never going to say, and we come upon the Jockey Club Derby Invitational again. It's an ill-conceived race. To suggest that American horses are ready to go this distance this early in a 3-year-old year, there's nothing to show that it's happened in the past. It's been a race that's been dominated by Euros. We had one good running of it. It got rained off a half an hour before it last year. Otherwise, this race has really not exactly been a highlight. Now, you get the horses that have stuck it out, and purses are good, and they're running in here. Unfortunately, we can't bet against Legends of Time. The problem I have as we show Carson's run winning the Saratoga Derby and Deterministic running third is with Legends of Time now, he's going to be the favorite. And the bloom is off the rose.
Yep.
He was a decent price when he won this race. He ran terrific down the in the disgraceful $3.1 million Nashville Derby, a race run an hour away from Nashville, a race that in a state that doesn't have thoroughbred racing. There's so much to like about that. Won by a Euro. I just feel like the price, it's over. You don't get a chance to make money with him anymore. And I just didn't want to pick him on top when they scratched the 7.
I've made my money with him in the past, and I felt like I didn't like anybody else enough to go with some alternative, because the alternatives that make sense in this race are also not going to be great shakes in terms of price. They're going to be second and third choice. So I think he's the likeliest winner, and I just ended up picking him on top. He's been very consistent. He seemed like that type of 2-year-old that maybe wasn't necessarily going to go on with that precocity he had, but then he did really show up as a 3-year-old and take those steps forward this year. He seems to be able to handle paces that aren't super quick in front of him. He's been very consistent as a 3-year-old.
He's a horse to beat.
Yeah.
There's no question about it. It's time to stop pretending that Deterministic is a closer. The best race this horse has ever run in his life, he was behind an honest pace. Why they suddenly decided after the Gotham that this is not a horse that wants to be forward is beyond me. And given his results since then, it was a bad decision. Whether it was a trainer decision or a jockey decision or indecision in general, that needs to end here. They need to go to the lead with him. They need to go to the lead and run dead last here. But they need to go to the lead because they need to stop pretending he's somebody he's not.
Do you think that'll happen?
Yes, I think that we have seen, and we're going to see him go. Now, he may lose anyway, but if they don't send him to lead today, they should have their heads examined. If they don't go to the front with him today, then I hope he loses in an odd way, because you're sort of getting what you deserve. You've got to give your horses their best chance to win. So I believe that Deterministic is going to go today. It's just my feeling is they have to understand who is the speed in this race. He is so much faster than these horses, and it's not as though he's been happy rating along in some of those races. Sure. He fought it before. Go. Just go. Go and lose and answer the question. But I think if he goes to the lead, he has a chance to win.
I don't disagree with that. I just don't think they're going to.
Well, I'm going to be optimistic and think that eventually sanity prevails. The definition of insanity actually is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. El Razine, listen, El Razine might win this race. I mean, the one thing he has proven to us is he is good with distance. And good trip or not, very good trip when he broke his maiden. This was a significant step forward for him, and he may just be the one that's improving, that loves the distance. And he might win this race and pay $820, and you say to yourself, why didn't I just take the horse that won at 1 mile and 3/8 already?
Yeah, he's been good. He's been taking those progressive steps forward. It seemed like, that we talk often about the light bulb going on once they win a race. He won at 1.5 miles to break his maiden and then turned around and improved significantly with that performance. And we often talk about how you don't see the types of margins of winning on the turf as you do on the dirt. So
his margin was helped by the fact that Irad didn't give the runner-up a particularly good ride. He waited way too long with him. I'm not saying he would have won, but I think it would have been a lot closer if he got a good ride. And Irad, I think Irad probably after the race wasn't pleased with his effort in that horse. What about Dashman? He won a mile and 5/16 in this race at Kentucky Downs. I'm going to start calling it Dueling Grounds. And I go back to when it was Dueling Grounds. And being that this isn't the Dueling Grounds Derby is now appropriately renamed for a town an hour away that doesn't allow thoroughbred racing. They have jump racing in Nashville. Maybe they're doing it for Percy Warner. What do you think?
I don't know. I just kind of wonder where he classes up. I thought he ran well in this race. It seems like he is a horse that is improving at the right time, but I think there's just some better horses overall in this field than he is, and I would be a little bit surprised if he ended up defeating who I think are the top three.
I agree with you. I thought he beat, like you said, a weaker field last time out. We'll take a look at the Belmont Sprint, turf sprint, and we'll take a break after that. And I want to start by talking about Nothing Better on the outside. I don't know that he's lost his speed. It just seems like they don't want to be as aggressive with him anymore. Today would be a good day for them to decide to be aggressive with him. There's not a ton of speed, and I know he got a little bit shuffled here, but he also got a very good trip while Senbei was going around the field, and I got to tell you, I just got a lot of love for Senbei, so I think Nothing Better is the worst to beat, but I'm going to take Senbei, who I thought ran well in here to keep going. I think he's run well in quite a few races, and I'm hoping he can get it done today. I thought they were the two horses to beat.
Yeah, it seems like lately Senbei is a horse that has taken some steps forward in his last two turf races. It's not as though he'd never run a fast race, but they tried multiple surfaces with him. I just thought that overall the body of work that Nothing Better had going back versus Senbei, it kind of spoke for itself a little bit more. But as of right now, maybe Senbei is the horse that's getting a little bit better and did have the tougher trip last time.
I disagree completely with your assessment. Senbei ran a huge race his first time on the grass. He was trying to go 7, which is probably a little far for him, and he lost to a horse that was in tremendous form then. Then he went to Saratoga, and he got completely and totally buried in traffic and had no chance. Then he got in trouble again in the Saratoga race on June 7th, and when he's gotten decent trips, he's actually run well in his turf races, I think from the beginning of his turf or not. So I don't think he's getting better. I think he's consistently been good in the turf when he's had a fair trip. So I think.
But would you say that overall the body of work that Nothing Better has on his resume and his PPs is something that's
because
a little
he's been sprinting longer and he has more wins. Of course, that's true.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's necessarily shown to be that much faster than Senbei has shown in any of his turf races where he's had decent trips. Sure. I just think Senbei hasn't run the turf as long, and Nothing Better's been running longer. And I think there's also an argument that 7 years old, Nothing Better's not quite as good as he once was. Sure. His very good races, he would probably wire this field. What did I miss with Son of a Birch?
I just felt like he's been very consistent when he's had the opportunities to sprint on the grass, which is exactly what he's going to be doing in here. I mean, he's been able to hit the board, if not win, against some okay horses in the past. I thought his last race was all right, finishing between Big Invasion after Outlaw Kid, and he seemed like he was going for a spot, and there was a moment of hesitation where either he didn't have the horse to go through there, or there was a little bit of wavering on the spot that they were going for. I think that if he had sort of gotten himself into a rhythm sooner than that and really had a little bit more consistent time to have that run go forwards, he could have done a little bit more in that race. But overall, looking back on his races sprinting on grass, he just makes sense coming into this spot as being consistent, maybe being one that's ready now for this step up in class.
Well, he beat Maya Prince by a nose 2 races back, and Maya Prince is a gigantic long shot. I mean, I understand he's a big price in here. Okay, I don't see it, but good luck. He's a big price in here. I think a horse going to take a lot of money is Mischievous Angel. He has a big win last time at Kentucky Downs. I don't think he classes up to these horses, to be honest. I thought he ran okay in Saratoga on August 24th, but I think overall he's sort of shown himself to be a cut below, and while he's lightly raced, he's just lightly raced because he's had trouble staying on the racetrack. Maybe he's improving, but I'm not going to bet him off a 7-furlong win at Kentucky Downs in his first decent figure. I feel like he always takes money. I am not a big fan of this horse.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I think that he's a player in here versus some of the other horses that I don't really give much of an opportunity to. But I think versus the price that he's going to be, I didn't really want a part of him, so I ended up picking him 4th. But I don't know what to do with him because some of his races suggest that he could be classing up because these are horses he's faced that have the graded stakes resume in the past, or perhaps then went on to be fairly consistent types. But overall, I just
beat
don't know.
Alexis Sorba by a head. I think Axthelm is the interesting horse in here. If you're looking for somebody off the beaten path, ran behind Cogburn, had run reasonably well at Kentucky Downs before that. He's got some faster figs going back for a barn that's been winning, and Pete Axthelm was one of my favorite people, so I'm going to root for Axthelm to do well. That's the first 6. We'll be back with the last 2 Grade 1s until the middle of next year here in New York.
Born in the foothills of the Adirondacks over 150 years ago, the Saratoga brand has become synonymous with quality, carefully crafted spring water. Each stunning blue glass bottle is created with the same attention to detail and care that has been the Saratoga hallmark for generations. So open a bottle, take a sip, and savor the Saratoga experience. Saratoga, an American classic that's always in good taste. Make every day exquisite.
Welcome back to Talking Horses. Sarah Abadwi and Andy Serling. Race number 7. So David sent me a revised morning line, by the way, last night. Or no, he put it on Twitter. I sent it to Greg so that we'd have it. And just so you know, he's got Snow White on the rail, the 3-1 morning line favorite, slightly favored over the Queen's MG at 7-2. And I kind of wonder why Snow White is supposed to be 3-1, and Scottish Lassie, he's got 5 or 6-1, because it's not like they didn't get bet first time. And I know he beat Scottish Lassie fairly comfortably last time, but I like you, I would rather take Scottish Lassie. I trust Jorge Abreu, though Jorge Abreu has never won a graded stake race.
Isn't that crazy?
It's a little surprising. And Snow White, I don't. Why am I supposed to take Snow White as a maiden in this race? Though Quick Kick ran a respectable second in the Alcibiades, but that race didn't come up that fast. The winner got an 80 buyer, so I actually think that she regressed on her buyer figure a little bit. So I don't know why that race is so special.
Yeah, I mean, she progressed by like 2 points. It's not significant,
she didn't move
but it wasn't
forward.
a step forward, and I think that that's worth mentioning. And also, why do I want to take a maiden who's run once, who showed speed, who got beat, going a little bit shorter on the rail, a day where the rail was probably not disadvantageous to be, versus Scottish Lassie, who was out a little bit wider, was favored in that race.
And I don't agree with the time form pace projector. I don't see how the Queen's MG isn't sitting outside of her flank. I just don't see how that's really possible. And it makes me think if she is in front easily that she's going too fast, or the Queen's MG didn't get out of the gate. But assuming they get out of the gate, I just wonder if she's going a little too fast. You can have her at a short price in here.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment as well. And then I kind of had the dilemma in here where I was looking at the revised line and thinking, well, am I overcomplicating things by thinking if the Queen's MG isn't the favorite?
Let's take a look at her race in the Adirondack.
And she's the only horse that's a multiple winner and a multiple graded stakes winner, and you might have the built-in excuse of the sloppy
one graded
track.
stake. One graded stake.
You're right. I'm
And
sorry.
The
There's
obnoxiousness of the race.
It's not.
The
It's
race,
no longer
no,
graded.
Yes, the obnoxiousness of them
Multiple
downgrading
stakes
the
winner.
Schuylerville, they're leaving the Gamely a grade 1, the American Oaks a grade 1, but you had to downgrade one of the most historic races in Saratoga history to a listed stake. I hope they're proud of that move.
I'm sure they are.
Anyway,
But
that won't be the last time I complain about that.
and it shouldn't be. But I didn't want to just say, okay, is this horse being dismissed? Is the horse who's maybe not the favorite, who just makes the most sense based on what she's done on the racetrack so far?
I guess. I mean, to be fair, she has survived quick paces and she's been able to finish in them. Now she gets to get a mile. It's for a barn that's certainly winning a lot of races. And you're right, there's just nobody in this race that appears to be that exciting, to be honest with you, with the scratch. I mean, Senzabrol was going to be 2 to 5 or less in here, and in all likelihood going to win. Unfortunately, she got injured and she's out. Are we so sure that Social Fortress for Jamie Ness, who's speed the outside? I know that she doesn't have the kind of speed the inside have. I mean, who knows? She could be anything, right?
I don't know. She won an off-the-turf race at Delaware, and then when she stretched out, she regressed quite a bit at Monmouth and beat nobody at all.
Maybe a bad Todd horse, yellow, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, but could she win? Sure, because once you get past the horse that is no longer playing in here, everybody looks exactly the same. And so then I had my thought of, I don't want to let the Queen's MG beat me as the horse who I guess is kind of a standout now in this field where everybody looks the same as the only multiple winner.
You're not wrong. She can win this race. I'm not a big fan of hers.
In stakes.
I prefer other horses in here, but I could certainly see her winning. I could see a lot of horses winning, including Akana Mama. His connections made the right move coming here. As it turns out, with Senza Parole scratching, they come out smelling like a rose. I thought she ran reasonably well last time going a mile. They probably wanted to stay around one turn. And I didn't think this was a bad effort by her at all to finish third, and she draws well on the outside. I thought she was kind of a logical horse in this race, to be honest.
I think it puts her in the conversation along with many others in here. And at least she's a horse that has the experience going the distance, even though she didn't win, whereas others are trying to stretch out or trying to get this mile for the first time. She at least showed that she could run the similar type of number going a mile.
I'm betting Pondering. I picked Pondering last time. The Spinaway, obviously a bad choice, but she's better than that. And obviously, she didn't handle the Muddy Seal track at all. And no disrespect to I always want to say Manny Machado when I see him. Manny Machado's a baseball player, in case you don't know that. For the San Diego Padres, who look pretty good. But getting Flavien Prat is a huge upgrade. I thought this horse's debut win was very good. Horse got bet in the Spinaway, and if the muddy track was an excuse, she has certainly found the right field to get it done. So I am betting on Pondering in this race, and I'm using mostly 3s and 10s. See what happens in the Frisette. First time I ever heard of Frisette was in 1974 when I was following Ruffian so closely because I had seen her in the Spinaway, and then I read the New York Times that she had a hairline fracture and she was going to miss a race called the Frisette. That was my introduction to the Frisette, actually.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, a lot of good horses have won the Frisette over the years. The Champagne came up a very fun race. Uncaged is not going to play for Todd Pletcher, which leaves Tip Top Thomas in, but we'll start with the hopeful and Chance McPatrick, and you can talk about why you and I have picked the same horse with Smokin' Wicked.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was wrong about Chance McPatrick. He was able to really overcome quite a bit in this race, showing that he can close into those fractions towards the outside. Doesn't matter that he's going to be far back. Lost an iron in this race to Flavien Prat and still was able to grind out that victory. And kind of a weird race by Ferocious because he looked totally beat and then sort of re-engaged once Chancer McPatrick was going towards his outside. But I ended up on Smokin' Wicked because they were aggressive with him in that race, and it was an honest pace at least. And he's shown in the past that he can stalk. He can sit off another horse and at least be able to have that rating kind of trip. And if those are the tactics they use again today, I don't necessarily know that he gets better with a mile, but I like that he's been game and survived some honest paces.
I agree. I thought he was the interesting horse out of that race. Chancellor McPatrick is way the horse to beat in here. He draws well on the outside. He should get some pace to run at. By the Smokin' Wicked outran his odds that day, and I kind of like horses like that. And I agree. I don't think they get too caught up in the pace today. You know, the pace is probably going to be set by Tip Top Thomas. And I mean, Ricky Card ran okay, losing his next start. I don't think the fourth place finisher improving really flatters the race because the fourth place finisher figured to significantly improve second time out. That was the closer for Godolphin. But he's okay, and he may be the controlling inside speed. We'll just see how fast he has to go.
It was a fast race. He won. I think that Rookie Card could be okay, even though he didn't win at a super short price coming back. It's a very sprinty pedigree. I kind of wonder how far he ultimately wants to go, especially if somebody else is going to press him.
I think that's very fair. And, you know, what do you do with the multiple maiden breakers? Vekoma rides. He didn't get a huge figure, but he didn't get a bad figure. Executive order, same situation. You have to think either or both of those horses could be forward in here, and both of them come out of respectable enough races. I mean, I know it was a restricted race for executive order, but he ran very well in that race. And I don't want to be completely dismissive of him. He's pretty good.
Yeah, I debated once on Cage Scratch putting him in the mix and ultimately went to Moplex, but I think that he is worth considering, and I wouldn't hold that restricted race against him because the number speaks for itself. He ran very well.
He was impressive.
And then Vekoma rides, yes, he's coming back off some short rest, but that was a decent performance from him too. It was a big race.
I agree. We'll take a look at Moplex, who I don't get at all, and you'll have to explain to me how you think he's going to be competitive here.
If I think the pace in this race is going to heat up, and I think that some of the horses that have shown what they can do with faster numbers are going to be a part of that pace and have that really starch taken out of him. He can pass horses, and he's at least a bit more experienced.
He's never been more than a length off the pace. I'm not quite sure what we're talking about.
He's passing a horse right now.
Okay, but he's not, he's a
He's
speed
not a
horse.
closer, but he's not going to be right up and needing the lead as some of these other horses that have shown that that's the way that they win.
Going a mile? I think it's hard to see him coming from pretty far off of it.
Is he faster than Tip Top Thomas? No, absolutely not.
Okay, but he might be faster than everybody else in here. So we see it differently. I just didn't think he was fast enough. I think they made the right move running the funny side. It was a good purse, not running the hopeful. And why not take a shot now? You can still come back 3 weeks later and run him in the Sleepy Hollow. But I don't think that he is fast enough here. I think there's too many horses that have proven he's sort of established himself as to where he is, and he found a pretty hungry field when he won the Sanford race number 9, as we're done with the stake portion of the card. And there's no doubt in race number 9, as we look at Transactional, who did win one of the craziest photos of all time. He's the horse to beat. He draws well on the inside. He figures to save ground as much as he can. I do think that Barnstorming actually ran very well in this race. He didn't get the best of trips, and he still finished a solid 3rd in here. But Transactional is a pretty likely winner, especially as things have scratched down and he draws well on the inside.
Yeah, I feel like I had squeezed the creative lemon for most of the other races in this race and came to this one and thought, well, he draws well, he's the likeliest winner, and now especially with scratches, my possible alternatives or perhaps interesting horses to use underneath aren't really playing in here. So he just makes a lot of sense. He ran very well last time with a wide post. Now he doesn't have to deal with that today. He was second off a little bit of a break as well, and he just seems like he's one that's running where he belongs.
Horse to be. I don't think he's a likely winner. I think he's probably at best. Hopefully he can work out a trip somehow, which he probably won't with a rider who doesn't ride here that much, though he has good numbers out of town. But we're dealing with a course that has been extremely tricky. If you haven't been saving ground for a significant portion of the race on the inner this week, your chances of being competitive are close to 0, at least from what we've seen from the first 2 days of this week. But Addicted to You, he's not a 1 3/8 horse. I don't care what he did last time. He ran extremely well 2 races back. He was close to the pace, a pace that completely fell apart. The horses that were in front ran last and second to last, and while the last finisher was 47-1, the second to last horse was 9-2, and that's Mauritius, who had run 81 and 80 buyers and then ran a 65 buyer. He was wide around the track that day and intending the pace, and I feel if he can run back to that race 2 back and not be hampered by the racetrack, and I made these picks before I knew that we were going to be dealing with a preposterous bias, he is to be the only horse in this race that has a chance to maybe beat the favorite. Probably not going to happen due to the post and due to the racetrack, but to me, he is very clearly an interesting alternative to Transactional, who probably will win this race. I don't like anybody else.
Didn't you make fun of me for picking this horse a couple races ago?
Okay, well, he ran 4th at 37-1. Did you key him for 4th in the Super?
No.
You seem to think that betting horses that are 40-1 and having them run like 15-1 shots is a moral victory.
I'm not saying
I hate to
it's
tell you
that.
this. Seriously, I'm going to say something. There are no moral victories for horse players. There are none. There are only losses and wins. And picking horses that outrun their odds doesn't do you any good unless you make money with them.
Exactly. But it doesn't do me any good to pick a bad favorite either.
Yeah, I don't think we are on the same page here, but we're not going to bore people with that conversation. We'll take a look at race number 10, which was dramatically craned by scratches. You lost the Baffert horse, who looked like speed inside. You lost K-Cup, horse finished 3rd, and now you're left basically with 2 Chad Brown horses, one that ran, and that's off script here, who probably will benefit from a little less distance. I'm a little tired of this horse, but given the scratches, he's just a hugely likely winner.
Yeah, I didn't want to take this horse at an extremely short price now, like this horse has been over the first couple of starts. This horse can obviously win. A little bit of a step forward in that last race, just getting beat by a big long shot in there with K-Cup finishing 3rd. But I don't know, this horse was 1-2, and I didn't see a major excuse. I think she just got run down by a horse that might be okay.
Well, the horse that beat her did come back and run respectively well in her next start, so I don't really have a big problem with her. I think she's the horse to beat. What's the story with Open Flame?
I'm just hoping that this is a horse that needs the cutback and perhaps was one that you did want to be inside in that debut where Accelerating won, Accelerating coming back to winning the Seeking the Ante. And I know that Off Script ran well in that race as well, but I think that Off Script is kind of showing us who she is over that last start too.
Right, but she beat her by 5 lengths with a worse trip.
She didn't have a worse trip. I don't think she was able to save some ground going into the first turn of that race.
She had trouble at the start, though, that took her out of the race early.
And then she made an early move to move up.
But she had
versus-
trouble at the start and then had to re-engage. Okay, we'll disagree.
She was able to save some ground at some point versus Open Flame, who
We
never did.
disagree. I think that she ran a lot better. But okay. All right, listen, she'll probably be the third choice in this race after the scratches, I
Right.
would guess, things considered. I'm going to bet Material Girl. I was going to bet her whether the other horse in the race or not. Obviously going to be a much shorter price given the scratches. I really like this horse's 2-year-old sales work where she worked 9 4/5. I thought this was a very, very impressive workout for her. She's the second foal. There's really not a lot of pedigree to go on per se, but I thought the workout was good, and how can I not bet a horse named for Madonna? So there you have it.
I think with her, that's a perfect example of the argument that we often have of, oh, this horse didn't switch leads, did it matter? In that workout, I don't think
We
so.
don't have that argument.
Not
because
you and
don't-
I, but
oh.
people in racing. There's no
I
argument
believe
between
what
us.
I liked when Tom Amis came on the show this summer and said there's way too much made about switching leads.
Yes, I
And
agree.
that defined
Especially
it for
with
me.
Candy.
Race number 11, going 6 furlongs. To me, this race is a question of sort of who classes up well in here. I really did want to show, though, the replay of the rough draft race more because I was looking for a replay and I couldn't find it in here. Also because Scuttlebuzz actually didn't run that badly in here.
ran very
Take
well.
a replay look, and while I kind of prefer his other half, who finished third in here, Maxwell Esquire, Scuttlebuzz was completely eliminated at the start of this race and lost all chance, and he had shown some signs he was coming back around to his once good form 2 back. I prefer other horses in this race, but I do think the entry is not impossible. I didn't particularly like the horses that finished that forward in here, though Maxwell Esquire has a chance, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, this is both parts of the entry have races to go back to that certainly make them dangerous. And I thought that Scuttlebuzz did run very well in here after that start because he is trying to at least make up some ground towards the outside in here. And Rough Draft, a good pick by you in this race. But it was that blanket finish. You got your price last time, and now.
It was 2 times ago, actually.
2 times ago, thanks.
Yeah. So anyway, what am I missing with Icy Flavor?
I like when he's aggressive, and he has been that kind of horse that can show some serious speed on the turf. And with the kinds of courses that we're dealing with as of late, if he can have that forward position, especially coming in fresh off that little bit of a break for him, I like his chances to possibly wire this field because,
With Eric Cancel? Wow.
hey, you know, Eric has been aggressive on some horses for Chad Brown as of late.
He's not an aggressive rider, but okay.
I know that.
I just don't. Okay, okay. He's going to be a big price, so good luck. I like Yarrow in here. Yarrow was buried on a dead rail last time out. That was when the rails were getting chewed up on the melon. And I remember watching that replay when I was watching another horse that improved out of that race that was towards the inside and said, "Who is that horse on the rail? I want to bet him next time he runs." I'm like, oh, it's Yarrow, and it kind of even shows in his races. I just think he's overall kind of faster than these, and I just think he's super logical. I also think that Vacation Dance fits in the category of drop downs. Look at who he's lost in his last 2 turf sprints. I mean, he was running in that very competitive race. The 4th finish in there was Mischievous Angel. The Bring the Band Back Home was a short price. He lost to Axthelm the time before that at 5. He's got some back races that give him a chance in here. And I thought maybe he was finally dropping himself into a spot where he could be effective. So I kind of wanted those horses, the horses that I think in general have been facing better horses. I don't really like Run Curtis Run because he's been awful in his recent races.
So bad.
But, and I don't think it's a big bias on here, he is going to get a delicious trip in here sitting on the rail. And he is a horse that likes to run inside of horses. I don't think his form has been good, but I think he'll run a little better today.
He's just been seriously disappointing.
awful. I
as
agree.
Of late, because I've tried him a couple times. I like this horse. He had races to go back to where he was pulling trips that were vastly different in terms of his running
He's
style.
been bad.
And still able to win. He's been awful.
He's been bad. I agree. He was terrible 3 back, terrible 2 back. And one of the reasons that I was interested in Rough Draft was I knew he'd be a short price last time, and I thought his form was bad, but he does project to get a pretty delicious trip in race number 11. Race number 12, we'll take a look at the horse that you have on top, the number 4, Bourbon Outlaw, and I will agree with you. This horse runs his last race. He's going to be tough to beat. He ran very well in here.
I thought so too. I mean, this horse was wide throughout. He was able to come after a horse that was loose on the lead, who just was one that seemed to be a little bit better than some of the competition that he was facing. And overall, looking at what have these horses done on the racetrack, I just don't really see anybody that's supposed to be some sort of dangerous standout in here because it was his first time dropping in for a tag, and he ran like a horse that improved dropping in for a tag. I thought this was a great ride by Katie Davis to try to get him there in the final stages, and ultimately he just got outrun by somebody else.
I don't know if it was a great ride or not. I mean, he was nothing really much he could do from post 12. He was 2 to 3 wide the whole way around the track. Just ran against behind a horse who I think was a short price for Todd Pletcher, and he made a lot of sense. He is very much a last time was the time horse. And David's got him 12 to 1.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's not going to be 12 to 1 in here.
What's it going to be?
I thought he'd be one of the favorites. Who's?
Steadfast Resolve for George Weaver?
Yeah, Steadfast Resolve has a terrible outside post. He may be favored, but he is a tough horse to love in this race. With his insanity and the way he runs,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe he'll be favored, but why would Flicker be half the price? Why would Flicker be half the price of Bourbon Outlaw? Bourbon Outlaw ran much better than he did. Is it just a Katie Davis thing? They're not going to bet Katie? I'm assuming that's what he's going to say. I mean, I'm going to take the Chad Brown first-time star. Horse has plenty of turf pedigree. Chad's been known to win with first-time stars in maiden claiming races. I don't know. I just guessing because I hate everybody in here. I mean, I think Flicker's a complete joke. He was horrendous last time. If he runs his last race, he better hope he gets every bit of the bias by drawing the rail. Yep. And, you know, the 4 was against the track last time out. I mean, Hurricane Express will probably get bet. Jeez, I mean, these horses are going to be half the price of Bourbon Outlaw simply because Katie's riding after the race this horse ran last time?
Well, I mean, you have 2 for Chad. You have Irad riding for George. You have Dylan, who's riding for Christophe.
Well, Dylan's not taking any money, but
Dylan's taking a little bit of money now with the way he's been
No,
riding
he's
through
not.
Saratoga.
No, he's not. No, he's not. Only Irad gets
Yeah.
bet. Anyway, I listen. If the 4 is 12 to 1, I should have picked the horse on top. I thought he'd be like 4 to 1 or 5 to 1. I think he should be.
I mean, if he's anything above 8 to 1, I'm happy.
I'm not sure he's not supposed to be vying for favoritism. Steadfast Resolve, a goofy horse. I mean, what did he do last time? He sucked up for second. He's got a terrible post. I mean, he could win, but he's a tough horse to take at a super short price from that post.
And he's been a very short price in the past and not gotten the job
Well,
done.
he's
And
been
while that
he's been a short price because he was an entry.
Yes.
He was not the one who was betting that. No, he's not been a short. He's a short price because his entry mate took all the money in there. Be careful. He's not a horse
the
that's been a
price on the
short price.
tote board was still the same.
Sarah,
I understand what you're saying, but
no, you're just not going to admit you're wrong. He was a short price
saying
because
that
the
he
other
wasn't-
half of
he
all right,
wasn't the one being
okay,
bet.
okay.
I hear you, but the price was still the same.
Just trying to get the accurate information out there. He's not a horse that's taken a lot of money in his career. That's a fact. Part of it is because he's a goofy horse who's a bad actor who causes his own problems. Head over to Naira Bets, use the promo code MATCH200, and we will match the $200 of your initial deposit. Check out Track Stats when you're over there as well. We also have a bankroll builder, last one, I believe, for the Breeders' Cup. Bet $50. Oh, wait, we got the carryover. Excuse me. Sorry, Eddie. Starts in race number 7, $24,847. Races 7 through 12, which include the 2 stakes, the 2 grade 1s for the 2-year-olds. Now we have the bankroll builder, 50 to win in the champagne, and get $20 back, win or lose, towards your bankroll. And if you've been betting every one of them, I believe there's a $20 bonus if you bet every single one in this sequence. We have, I think that's it. We got the show, 12 to 4 on FS2.
And small correction, we are actually on FS1 today.
Okay,
Late notice.
we're on FS. Were we supposed to be on FS1?
No,
Okay,
we are now.
we're on FS1. Good to know. All right, Sarah, thank you. Chris Griffin, he's got a big day ahead of himself. Could be his last 12 race car of the year. I know he's probably upset about that. He'll be up with a reprise, scratch and changes in just a moment. Have a great day.
Born in the foothills of the Adirondacks over 150 years ago, the Saratoga brand has become synonymous with quality, carefully crafted spring water. Each stunning blue glass bottle is created with the same attention to detail and care that has been the Saratoga hallmark for generations. So open a bottle, take a sip, and savor the Saratoga experience. Saratoga, an American classic that's always in good taste. Make every day exquisite.